Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Hospitality TV. I'm your host, Rafael Peterson. If this is your first time tuning in, thank you for joining. This is a show that was created for the hospitality industry. The goal here is to interview some amazing people who have a lot of insights and lessons that we can learn from so that we can be better, those around us can be better, we create a bigger and better industry. My one ask for this show is that if you find anything of value whatsoever, that you please share the show. If you think it's valuable for somebody that you might know, please share it for them. That's the only way that the show gets bigger. We get bigger and better guests, and everybody benefits from that. Cool. Today I'm sitting with Mr. Mark Huddleston. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Glad to be here.
I'm glad we're finally doing this. We've talked about doing this for a little bit, and I'm super excited to have you here.
That's my pleasure.
So you're currently the co-founder of H. Mercer, California. You also run the counterpart in Texas, which goes under Parker Wolf.
Yep.
But I wanted to talk to you for a while. Obviously, I work for the company.
Right.
But I'm super glad to be sitting here with you, and I'm just excited to kind of go over the history of H. Mercer and all the lessons that you guys have learned along the ways. And we always kind of chat about it on the side a little bit, but...
No, I think it's really important for us to do this and to come back together and to discuss how we created H. Mercer Imports all together, because we work so hard, like out there every day.
Yeah.
To have this moment to sit with you and to like go through this is really important, and it brings a lot of value to our company and to share with the rest of the community.
Definitely, I agree. So let's get back into kind of the comic book story, like episode 1.
Sure.
What? How did you meet Laurent, and how did you guys decide to form H. Mercer?
So Laurent and I, we both came from our restaurant background and working in restaurants. Like for me, it was starting as a busboy at Chili's, and then finishing as a sommelier at 2 Michelin star restaurant at Providence in Los Angeles. Cool. And then also worked at Gordon Ramsay. And Laurent had a similar yet more French version of that story, but then came to the United States and worked in restaurants as a sommelier. But we met when we were both working as sales reps in Los Angeles. And he was covering Santa Monica and Orange County, and I was covering Hollywood and downtown Pasadena and kind of like basically Los Angeles center and east.
Gotcha.
And we were working together, but not together, kind of like how you guys work with the rest of the team, where you're in your territory, but we'd get together, we'd talk all the time whenever we'd have meetings. We really saw how we each had a very similar perspective, even though we came from much like broader, different backgrounds. He, I think started off, he's like very traditional. He comes from Burgundy. He like has that very French view of wine, which brings a lot of value and culture and depth. And then for us, as I think as Americans, a lot of times we're getting everyone bring wines to us from all over the world. And so we have like kind of this open eye look at the wine world. And so that combination that I'm looking at wines from different areas that he didn't really know about, and then also he had all that depth of knowledge from the French portfolio side. But then what happened was I decided that I wanted to move on and do something else. Like I was working with that company. We learned a lot. It was fantastic. But at a certain point, I was looking to grow something myself. The story is actually, and it's a true story, not just a fun, broad story that I'm, bringing to the table, but it is a true story. And my wife and I were on honeymoon in Vienna. We'd been to Bordeaux, but when we got to Vienna, she said, "I'm not going to any more wineries." And I'm thinking to myself, I don't know about this whole marriage thing. This is how we're going to start. It's like no more wineries, because when I worked at Gordon Ramsay and other places, we had full page of Austrian Riesling, full page of Austrian Gruner Veltliner. And actually the first night that we were in Vienna, we went to a wine bar, and the owner gave me a couple whites and then asked him for a red. He came back, brought me the red, didn't tell me what it was, just put it down. I smelled it, I tasted it, and I was thinking, why is this reminding me of Bordeaux? I was thinking my mind must be still stuck in Bordeaux. And so the owner came back and he presented me the wine. It was actually the Das Fantôme, which is the wine that started H. Mercer Imports.
Nice.
And I was like, and it was a Blaufränkisch Cabernet Merlot blend. So fast forward, come back from the honeymoon. my wife and I had been saving money for our first condo in LA, just a down payment. But as I was saying, I was kind of looking to move on to do something else. And I talked to my wife and I said, can we use the money that we saved for our first condo to start our own import company? And she said, go for it. So that was like, that was the moment that it was, you know, we'd both been working so hard to save. But what it was also is that when we started H. Mercer, it was, the idea for me was I was already working around in the market. I knew who all the clients were. So what I needed, though, is to bring in some quality wines. So I already had that one step kind of take care of.
How long had you been working in sales at that point?
That was about 3.5 years.
Okay, so pretty fresh into it.
Still pretty fresh, but I think because of, I'd been in Los Angeles at that time for about 12 years, working in restaurants. So that really made it so I did have connections. If it was somebody here, hey, do you know who's over there? And I had a lot of like top quality wine colleague friends as well.
And you and Laurent were not working for the same sales company?
We were working.
You were working. Oh, that's obviously how you met him, and you guys were friends covering different territories. But,
correct.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, and so I decided, okay, let's go ahead and get this started. And I contacted Kernbauer and Das Phantom. We actually created a couple other, we created one label called Blauhaus, and we had 4 Blaufränkisch, and then a little Bordeaux and a little bit of Sancerre. And Laurent was part of the process of everything that was going on when I was starting. He was doing this kind of more as a favor to me, like sitting with me, tasting through things, giving me his opinion.
Well, he hadn't done any imports himself at that point.
He had worked with another company before that.
Okay.
And that was a strictly French business. But that was also before he and I worked together as sales reps in this one company in LA.
But was he also just working on sales, or was he already importing?
No, he was just doing sales.
Gotcha.
At that point.
Okay.
The other, like how these stories of different wineries and things come together, which is awesome, is that I went to Australia and I was told, you got to go try these Pinot Noirs from Mornington Peninsula. My godfather had grown up there, and he's telling me all about this. And of course, at that time, this is 2011, and in the industry, you didn't have as many people that were bringing in the wide variety that we have now, and it's still not that long ago.
Right.
But really, people still had in their minds, and they still sometimes do as well, is Australian wine is only Big Barossa Shiraz, but if you look at Australia, it's a huge continent. There's the biodiversity, geology, the climates, like it's a broad swath of land. So I went there, tasted the Mourvedec wines, which was another fun experience in the sense that I had to keep my poker face on while I was tasting those wines. But of course, once I got to the McIntyre vineyard, it was just all over. I brought those wines samples back to the U.S. And again, Laurent comes, sits down at my apartment. Hey, what do you think? What do you think this could be? Do you think there's market viability for these? What was exciting about this is at the time, we're a small new company, and like these are top quality producers in Australia. So it was a great way for us to bring something in new that was like not already discovered in our market.
Right.
Laurent tasted through those Pinot Noirs, and he said that night he couldn't sleep. He said in his mind, he was like, if Mark can find these things, and then I can bring these traditional French and Burgundy relationships and grow that portfolio, I think that we could be like fantastic partners.
It's so interesting because obviously the book now, the core of the book is French, right? And we're very well known for the presence of our French wineries from throughout the country.
Definitely.
But we started off with Austrian and Australian wineries.
Yeah, that sometimes made people confused because they're like, so you guys are the Australian portfolio or the Austrian portfolio? It's like, no, we have both.
Yeah.
And even actually we got mentioned in Wine Spectator without even asking or pushing on that. There was an Australian tasting that was in San Francisco, and that really kind of, at that time, gave a lot of credence to what we were doing there. I do also remember, like, Laurent was, like, so excited about these Australian wines, and he was going around, and he was having a great time, like, pushing them and showing to people.
So that was the first container that got here. Before any other French or Italian wines got here, you guys were showing the first Austrian and Australian.
So the first container that came in was Austrian with a little bit of French wines.
Okay, gotcha.
So, and then the Australian obviously comes from another side of the ocean, so it came on a different shipment. That was about a year after. So if it was first Austrian.
Gotcha.
And
that's so
and a little
interesting.
Bit of French.
Wow.
And then it just kept growing and growing piece by piece.
Yeah.
One of the things also is, because of both of our backgrounds, is we never added anything because it was like a check mark on a list. It wasn't anything that we said. So every time we brought something that was French, it was, we brought this one winery in from Sancerre, then the Vacqueyras, I think, is another great story where we looked. It sounds like we're being overly picky, but I think it took us 5 years to find the Vacqueyras that we have now, because it had the right balance. It still was medium towards full-bodied, had spice, and it also was at a price point that made sense.
Right.
And so all those pieces, and over the years, were built piece by piece. And Laurent had obviously a huge impact on that, especially on the French side of the portfolio.
What I was going to say was, he like just chomping at the bit, just ready to go, like, hey, let's go. I know a lot of producers in Burgundy. That's where he's from. That's his hometown. I feel like he always talks about, these are people that I grew up with and I know them from my childhood. That he kind of had those contacts, or a fair amount of them, ready to go and get into the portfolio.
He had some of those. One of, actually, though, was also during this time, is that Provence Rosé was like on fire in the market. And he worked with Chateau Saint-Pierre in one of his previous positions, and that was one of the first wineries that he brought in.
Gotcha.
And then from there, it's always been these relationships and referrals. Because even in Austria, Markus Kernbauer, he then recommended Heinz Wechselbaum, and then also Schneider. And then Buchegger was recommended by the wholesaler agent of Wechselbaum in Austria, where me and him were driving in the car to Vienna.
Yeah.
And he says, oh, do you know about Buchegger? And then he gave me the contact and talked to them. Where then, like, Gritsch, I already knew Gritsch. Gritsch is a top quality winemaker, great reputation. Then they found out I was working with these other people.
Right.
And they then contacted. On the French side, same thing. Chateau Vanier is really at the core of our portfolio on the French side, not only because of the quality wines, the tradition, and where they come from, but also Eric, he's been instrumental in also these kind of referrals, relationships. And that's also where we have Isabelle Ferrando and Saint-Prefer.
Right.
And a lot of times, Laurent and I both go out and search for wines, research wines, look things up. When I went to Australia, I was just reading the James Halliday guide, and at the time, like, most of these things weren't even in the U.S., none of them. But then that next step where you build that relationship with the supplier, with the winery, and that trust, that really helps you to then find other relationships. And in Burgundy, this has also been, it's like we look flush on Burgundy. We'd always want more, but like, there was times where it's like one piece, then the next piece. Like La Moulière we've had for quite some time. But there's other wineries that have been a piece by piece by piece. And even L'Ami Pillot, we've had it for years now. That was a huge addition. And of course, Glantonnet in the last couple of years. Right. This is something that Laurent's been working on for years. Yeah, yeah. So, and it's been good because we both work in... I love French wines, and I was doing a lot of the Bordeaux and some of the Loire stuff. But then, of course, once Laurent came on, there's no reason for me to hold on to those. I still like saying hello to them and send them messages every once in a while. Right. Go visit, like we're going to do this year. But he handles that, and then now I'm doing the Austria, Italy side of the portfolio, obviously Australia as well. Right.
Why the name H. Mercer?
So one of the things that I was very mindful. So my background also, I worked as a photographer, and I went to art school, and I did a lot of things with advertising and branding. And one of my things is I didn't want, even though my last name is a nice last name for myself, Huddleston, I don't think that it really works in a branding application. So I wanted to come up with a name that was something that was a name that could be remembered, but also was not also derivative of like wines on the vine or crushing grapes or something like this. I wanted it to have nothing to do with that. So one of the things I decided is that I was looking for something that also it sounds like it's been around the block. And what I was looking at is a lot of these kind of like older branding of like luxury items or like banks and things in the early 1900s, where you would have it's like a first initial and then the name afterwards. So, and then I have a good friend whose name is Cameron Mercer, and the name Mercer is comes from the word merchant. And so I asked Cameron, I said, you know what, I want to make this company, but I want to use your name. Is that okay? And he said, that's fine. And it worked out perfectly as well, because the H stands for Huddleston, and then we have the M that ties in for Laurent, which is Mercer, and then it's H Mercer is together. But really the biggest thing for me was not being my name. Personally, I know that there's some ego for that for some people, and I think for branding for some people it works. But for me, since this is also a partnership, it's going to be Huddleston Mishi Imports. Like, that's not catchy. It's like, so who do you work for? I work for Huddleston Mercer Mishi. See, I can't even say it myself. so having that was a big thought process for me, and it wasn't like I said it really fast, right? Yeah, it took a little bit of time.
What was sorry, I just want to jump around a little
please.
bit. Like, I'm trying to go back to the time when you guys were starting and just kind of what your frame of mind was, and honestly kind of like what the competition was like.
Yeah.
I'm wondering kind of some of the big names, and by not big names, obviously not referring to the massive importer distributors, but the guys that are around our size right now, I guess. What was that like at the time? Were you kind of intimidated, think like, man, how are we going to compete with these wines on the market? Or were you just kind of already in a great place? Like, we've already found great wines that I think are going to do very well in this market. Like, let's just go. Like, I want to just get a little insight into your frame of mind at that point.
I think that it definitely was, I mean, for me personally as well, my daughter was just born. So I had like, all right, we're starting this business. We took all the money that we had that was supposed to be for the house. We've got a new daughter, and it's like, I think it is like that. Your brain just clicks into like this hyper mode of just move, go. And I think that's
like you already made the commitment. There's just like,
we have to go.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, there's no other option. It's like, okay, I don't know how. And so the worrying, really, I didn't worry too much. And it's not because I was like, oh yeah, I'm fantastic, I'm awesome. It was really just like, oh, we've made this decision, let's go.
Right.
The biggest challenges obviously was kind of when you're starting, it's like had limited resources to start, but also, from always, chasing a dollar can really hurt you. Like if you chase a dollar only, then you're not really building like a longevity, and you're not building your brand, you're not building your reputation. And I've seen that in other companies where they're just thinking, oh, I heard this thing is trendy now, so we're going to sell this. Or I heard that, so how much do you want to pay for your Pinot Grigio? So I'll get one like the same price. Okay, so now you're just a commodity trader.
Right.
You're not bringing culture, you're not bringing any kind of contribution. And I think because both Laurent and I came from like fine dining, Michelin style restaurants, we knew that like we needed to be true to ourselves and have that balance of making sure that we're still making good financial decisions to keep pushing, but also not damaging our brand. So kind of long story short on that is that the hardest thing was that patience to not chase the dollar.
That's perfect, because it kind of actually leads me into my next question, which is I wanted to ask you about the ethos of the portfolio and like what has been the frame to bring in new producers and kind of what are some things that you look for. And as you've grown, right, you just mentioned an example of some things that you didn't want to bring on, maybe an inexpensive Pinot Grigio or you know, a Malbec because it happened to be trending. Like, what are some things that have been steadfast for you that are markers in new producers that you look for?
So, I mean, any producer, I mean, and it's kind of a generic thing to say, but it's quality is number one. But anybody can decide what their version of quality is. I think that the key markers, though, are always, we're looking at, if it's traditional wines, and when I say traditional, I'm saying like regions, like if it's Left Bank Bordeaux or if it's Chablis, that kind of a story of the place is very important, and what it shines through, it has to be integral to that decision, whether the wine is delicious or not delicious. Does it represent a story that we're trying to tell? And what we're trying to do as ambassadors is we are bringing this portfolio together to then not just show each wine by itself, but to show it, this is our portfolio and our thought process. So when we're looking at these traditional areas, Chablis needs to make sure that we are smelling those like white flowers and the Cameroonian soils. Like that has to be there. Now, whether the wine could be fruitier or even drier, that's a different thing. So we're always looking for that. And the same thing when I said, but Vacqueyras, when I used that in an example earlier, there's a lot of Vacqueyras that could either be less expensive and a good value, or there's some that, you know, there's certain producers that make Vacqueyras that's $100 a bottle. But for me, it's like, I'm also looking from a restaurant standpoint. How do I use these things? And why would I order them? And why would I recommend them to a customer? Same thing that happened when, and I think that's what we both do. We look at the restaurant background of what we did is, how are we sharing this time and place and wine with our customers? And when we do that, and it's clear, it also builds trust.
Right.
So now, if someone comes to us and they hear that we are bringing in a wine, like right now we're going to bring in some Lambrusco. They're not thinking, well, we got to try this. I mean, they do need to try it, but they're not thinking like, well, H. Mercer, they only do Burgundy, so I don't know if we can trust them there. But we have so many customers now that I'm very thankful of, that they say, oh, you have one of these? Okay, send me a case. Right. I need it for an event. Right. Because the trust has been built. Right. Because it's not just about, is it tasty? Is it yummy?
Right. Well, I think that there's also an aspect of like stylistically they know what to expect from the portfolio as well, right? Like we don't go, and jump in here anytime, but we don't go for the big, flashy, over-extracted, high oak, higher alcohol styles of wine in any of these regions. I think there tends to be an overarching theme of a little bit more elegance, more refined on the palate. And I think that a lot of the producers that we get in kind of fit that role. You know, that was one of the things that I was noticing with the new Hermitage producer that we just brought in that we're super excited. We went to go visit them the summer before last. And with Laurent and some of the other team members, when we were at the winery, we all walked out of that winery like, holy crap, those wines were delicious. Like, they're so good. And then when they finally got here, we're tasting them with clients. And as I'm tasting the wines, again, it's just another example of this is a really beautiful, floral, elegant style of Hermitage. Right. And in my mind, I'm already like, this is, again, just another great representation of the styles of wine that we carry. And I feel that, you know, it's one of the most overused terms out there, but I think it's just kind of like, you know, traditional and varietally correct to where it comes from is something that I think a lot of people bank on us for. And now in my younger career with the company too, I'm lucky enough to have those same experiences also where people are like, do you have this from there? I'm like, yeah, we do. Okay, I trust you guys. Just go ahead and send the case. You know, we kind of already know what to expect. Or we'll have the conversation too. What do you think? What's it showing like? What does it taste like? And I give them as honest as an opinion as they can about how I feel that wine is showing. And if that's what they're looking for, they trust us on it, and we can send them a case, you know?
I mean, that's, to me, the number one thing is reputation and holding that reputation, whether it's through It's not just, it's our reputation with our suppliers, our reputations with our clients, our reputation in the broader culture of the wine world is the most important thing.
Yeah.
And when we cultivate that, and that's something that really has to happen. And don't get me wrong, like there's times when I look at things and I go, that could be cool. Mm-hmm. And I have to decide, is it the Mark Somm who is thinking this is cool, the Mark business owner who thinks this is cool, and that's a balance too, because there's some wines that, you know, I think that you see that are being sold in the market and they're doing well, but they don't fit our portfolio.
Right.
And so we have to stay true to ourselves, and that still doesn't mean we can't branch out a little bit too. That's one of my things about Chile that I love, is that with Maturana, is that in Chile, the tradition, or how we would say that for European versus Chile versus California, it's still a story to be written right now. And I think that is an opportunity where you look at, for them, they're out hunting and finding old vines that were planted 100 years ago. And then, you know, kind of creating a new wine not industry, but a new wine perspective.
Right.
But the wines are still like very interesting, very clean, and they come from a place where you can see what they're trying to show you. It's not just making a delicious wine or a style of wine that sometimes I refer as like the beer wine, where it's basically just crafted. It tastes good. It's good, but it's not really telling me about a place.
Right.
It's just showing me, oh, this is yummy Grenache, or this is yummy Syrah. This is fine. And there's a lot of people in the market who they just want to have a yummy glass of wine. But for us, and not to be too like overarching or whatever, but it's, for us, we need more. We need to bring more. And I get fulfillment from that when I visit clients and they're excited about the product that we sell to them, because they get excitement from the people that they show it to.
Right.
And this is the joy that we get to share. And that is the part that really makes me excited. And it knows that I'm doing a good job.
Right.
Because if people are excited by the things we do, then all the things that we do behind the scenes is worth it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and again, I think that's a good segue into the next question too, is you know, a lot of times I feel like, you know, you don't hear a lot of maybe importers or distributors even talking about this much in media, but it's obviously, it's a huge component of what we do is the sales part of it, right?
Sure.
And I think so many people think sales and they think one thing, and they have a perception of this, and a lot of people are like, oh my God, sales, it's just like such a horrible thing. You're trying to sell me something. No, leave me alone. And it's such an interesting topic. You know, I talk about this a lot with you and with Laurent too, because I've been in the hospitality industry my whole adult life. I mean, I started in the industry when I was 21 years old. And I've been in, just like you, from everywhere from neighborhood wine bars to Michelin-starred restaurants and everything in between. But I've also taken a huge liking and focus on like the hospitality part of it. That was always a humongous thing for me for like probably midway through the career when I started learning about guys like Danny Meyer and Paul Greco and these old school guys from New York. And then my job at Aqua in San Francisco, and it was 2-star Michelin, and it was right before the bust in 2008, but it was before that, so times were really good, and people were just spending a lot of money, and like these power lunches in the financial district in San Francisco were like a real thing, you know? And we had these French sommeliers who were essentially maitre d's as well.
Right.
And I just always remember looking at these guys like, man, that is like such an interesting character. He's so well spoken. He's very knowledgeable about the wines, but the food and the menu and the guests in the dining room. And he made people feel very welcome. They remember where they sat, you know, what food they like to enjoy, who they came in with 3 weeks ago, how's that person doing? Like, there was just so much around it. I was like, that to me is the type of sommelier I'd like to be one day.
Right.
It wasn't at all actually about I need to go memorize this
know all the
information
rules.
to get
Yeah.
this pin for an exam that I need to take in 1 year. Like that wasn't even a thought. Like yes, there needed to be an acquisition of knowledge.
That could be a foundation,
right?
for sure,
but
it's
it
not
wasn't like
end
the
goal.
push. It was more like I'm going to be this hospitality professional, you know, and I've always strived to be that. And it's it's a work in progress always, I feel like, for everyone, but I think that it's just something I've always brought with me to a lot of the restaurants that I've been in, and like this has to be a focus of what we're doing. So now in this part of my career, working with the company and how we approach people in sales has always been something that has been really important to me, and how do we do that in the best way and try to connect with our people and be, you know, great assets to them, but make them feel good about the interactions that we're having and making sure that they feel like they're, you know, being taken care of.
That's the number one thing. Yeah.
It's a very, very long way for me to ask this question. Sorry, but I just wanted to give my insight on that because it still continues to matter to me, and I just wanted to pick your brain on like what your view on that part of the sales part of our job is, maybe how it started too, when I'm so sorry, when was Mercer founded?
2011.
2011. Okay, so we're going on 14 years now. I'm sure there's been different ways in how you've looked at it. How was your how has your vision of sales progressed over the years?
I mean, I think the main thing where it comes back to is contributing. And so if you contribute to their program and you're showing that you want to contribute, not that I just need to sell you something, because I'm sure you've seen other sales reps that you're lined up with, and they have a sales quota that they need to hit. And so they're trying to push something onto their customer who doesn't need it. Okay. And for me, it's always been, you take that extra step of knowing what they need and almost make yourself a professional of their business as well, or as much as you can.
Right.
You know, don't be presumptuous. Like you need, oh, I saw you don't have this. You need this.
Right.
It's like, so I saw that you have this and this. Hey, would you think that this might be something that would work for you at this price point and all that? And give good suggestions. Like be a partner for them. That's always my number one thing when you're going into sales. Now, the other side of it is you have to make sure that you remind yourself that that is what you're doing. You're contributing. Sometimes there's some timidness that comes along where people in our culture, they think like, oh, I don't want to be rude by being pushy. And you don't have to be pushy if you have that mindset of that I'm contributing. I'm trying to contribute to your program, and not in an arrogant way, just in like, no, I'm trying to do this.
Right.
And when you do that, you can suggest anything. You can ask for your order. You can always do these things all together, because where you're coming from is not this like really slimy like door-to-door salesman thing where I'm going to try to sell you a vacuum and some snake oil and some putty that's not going to really work.
Right.
That's the problem with that background of that idea of I work in sales, where sales becomes like this dirty word, when really we all need things and we need people. And if they could sell us the better things that we need to use in our life, we're not going to look at those people as, you know, the guy with the crazy suit with like selling us a used car. It's like, hey, you know what? I need some of this. I need to talk to so-and-so.
Right.
You become an asset. And for me, that's the main thing. And I always remember the bigger companies are always fighting over the same piece of meat, same piece of bread. And for me, I'm looking at it, especially at the beginning, coming in and saying, all right, so they're going to fight out the BTG, Chardonnay, and Pinot Noir. Okay, well, I'm still going to get into this account, and I'm going to get 2 more placements that aren't those, but I'm going to get 2 of those types of placements at 100 restaurants in town.
Right.
And that's where I'm going to build. And I built my trust there.
Right.
And then later on, I get Chablis placements. I get Pinot Noir placements now. And it's not hard.
Right.
Because they now know the quality of everything else that we do.
Right.
They'll give us now those other placements as well. So to me, it's like a soft way of, gaining trust. Now, there's patience. But at the end of the day, like I always say, you always have to ask for your order. Like, that's the number one thing. Like, you can do all these other things perfectly great. Right. But if you don't ask, then it's also just saying, like, well, you're trying to help. Let's get it done. Let's get it into their program, and now we move on.
Right. No, it's super interesting. I mean, I think it's just really like effective communication, right? Like
Yes.
I think everybody's trying to sell a point of view. Like if you're a wine director working in a restaurant, like you're trying to get a raise from your boss, like you need to sell your boss on that raise, and you need to at the end of the day too.
Well, yeah, show
ask
them
them,
why. And
yes,
it's like, I'm doing these things, and I think this is contributing.
Right.
And also say, like, oh, you thought this was good, right?
Right.
So how about we send a case for this week? Or like you say to your boss, like, I mean, I'm doing this, we're doing this, and I've shown all these problems. What do you think about a raise for the next quarter?
right.
You've already shown them what you're worth.
Yeah, exactly, and I think that's the point, right? Like we're all trying to communicate something in a certain way,
But also have that confidence and say, and this comes back to keeping ourselves really accountable in the things that we bring in, are the way that we do our interaction with our clients. You keep those things consistent, because when you do that, that's when you keep trust. And when you try to diverge from that and say, well, my number one goal is only to sell this number, then are you going to cut the corners on those other things that could diminish your trust?
right?
And I think that we've shown that we can do both. I don't think that you have to give up your integrity and be successful. You have to be patient. You have to be willing to put the effort in. And it does take a lot of work. As you know, we drive, we call, we make lots of notes in our phones. We really try to do the best that we can for our clients. And it is harder work than just multi-million-dollar marketing that helps sell wine.
Yeah,
But that's where our portion of our business becomes value. And that's where we differentiate ourselves. And I hope that that's what our clients see.
yeah. No, that's awesome. So let me ask you this, actually. So what's one piece of advice that you would give to yourself if you could go back to day one, you just made the decision to start H. Mercer with everything that you've learned so far? Would you do something different? What would you tell yourself?
Really, for me, the way that we've started the company and we work hard ourselves is looking then towards how we hire and then how we build the team. I think now we're very lucky in the team that we have. I don't think we ever had any like major problems or anything. But I could say that I think that trusting your gut on who you think is going to work well with you is the most important thing. I think only once I was pleasantly surprised, and all the rest of the times I should have listened to my gut feeling on things. And not
You're
saying
talking about hiring people, hiring sales staff, basically.
Hiring sales staff, yeah. Hiring sales staff that's always been the hardest, and really what it came down to is all the successful people that we have either known about us from H. Mercer in the market, or they worked as clients of ours. Like you're a client of ours, Kristen's client of ours, all of our top people, and they're already excited about the portfolio.
Right, they're kind of already bought in.
When we've attracted people to come work with us, that has worked out to be the best. And I'm not saying we haven't done well. We've hired outside of that, but that is the formula to really to create a great team and get the right people working for you.
Yeah.
Because they're already, like you said, they already love the wines.
Right.
Now they're ready to go. That's really I mean, all of us sitting here, we're working our butts off. My only other thing would be making sure that we had structures of certain things put in place earlier. I do love the whole concept of the mercenaire. That was something that I came up with. I was just like, because that's how we are. We're going out and we are mercenaries. We're pillaging. We're making stuff happen. However we need to make it happen, we're going to do it.
Yeah.
We know we have great stuff. We know we're going to go out and see people, and they're going to really appreciate our selections. But we definitely have that go, 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 go all the time.
Yeah.
And I think that I would have liked to have a little bit more structure of certain things in place. But it's kind of hard to say, because I could say that, but then really that mentality is really at the core of who we are. So it's kind of changing who we are a little bit, but I still would have preferred to have a little bit more policy structures instead of just being like straight up Viking and rolling through the hills.
That's super interesting. I mean, it's a little bit of like the beauty of who we are also, because it doesn't you're not micromanaged. I feel like you have a lot of space to work in whatever way you see best fit. I can see that maybe going south on some people if they maybe a little bit too relaxed, or there aren't like things that are, nobody's like cracking the whip on us, but I think it also leaves a lot of room for kind of like almost like entrepreneurship within what you're doing. It's like you have the ability to create the schedule in the best way that you can, to do your follow-ups the best way you can, to present your material the best way that you can, to reach out to people and create great experiences like we're talking about in the best way that you see fit.
Yes.
And I think that that's exciting for me. Like it leaves almost like a complete, like just like an open chalkboard of possibilities to see how can we do this in the best possible way. So it's kind of fun also.
I agree.
I think it benefits the person more than
it does. I that's why I said I wouldn't change it to being like, we'd have all these policies and this is how everything is done this way, that way, or the other.
I think that's the most, because also at the same time, like I can give sales tips. I can give tips on selling wine, explaining wine, reaching out to clients. At the end of the day, you're going to do it your way. Now, I can give some really like fine pointers that I think could help.
Right.
But really, it needs to be you that goes out and does it.
Right.
Right. And I think that's a strength. I just think that there's sometimes, there's some things that we have that I would love just to have, backed up on my end that, it helps me to keep going forward. Kind of like you were saying, like about setting up today. It's like we had everything just set up. It'd be beautiful.
Right.
And for me, sometimes it's that's a hard thing as any small business owner to tell you. It's like, you have, I'm involved in compliance. I'm involved in accounting. I'm involved in wine knowledge. I'm involved in every bit of those things, and I think it would have been better in the beginning if I had the opportunity to have more support in just those like kind of administration areas.
Right.
That said, we were using every bit of cash flow to buy more wine and get out and sell more wine.
Yeah.
Which I love. So
awesome. All right, man. Well, thank you. Did we miss anything? Anything that you want to add here? We're going to taste some blind wine here in a second.
Okay.
Let's do that.
Yeah.
All right. Just like riding a bike, right?
That's quite the spit cup glass.
You like that?
It's huge. It's like I don't run solo. I run dopo. Oh man, that's crazy.
All right, so we've done this on a couple episodes. Cheers.
Cheers.
But I think the beautiful part about getting to do a blind with someone, and the last thing we need is like to run down the CMS grid of like tasting red wine. Sure. Just how different somms and wine professionals approach a glass of wine. What's the most important thing to them? What stands out? These are all like absolutely like classic, testable varietals, I think.
For me, it's always, I definitely look at color first. Like and I'm not like, a person that follows every single grid type thing.
Yeah, no, just tell us what the most significant things are that pop out at you with this wine,
color for me first. Like I'm always looking at color just to see, can I see through it? And I can see through this a little bit. It's still dark, but that's already helping me to go, okay, well, that's important. So for me on this one now, the main components that are coming out of these like savory notes. Mm-hmm. The savory notes are the part that's like really pushing up for me. Black cherry, but also these like herbal not quite.
When you say savory, what do you mean?
I mean, so for me, it's kind of like it's not into. It's like the sagebrush, or like it's not going quite towards Provence style herbs like sage, maybe a little bit of sage, but that's what I mean savory. I don't mean like very like if this is other things that are very blue flowers, which I get some of that too, but it's like, and also intensity level, like those are the things that first made me go, okay, let's take that. Where am I at?
Okay.
There's like a very dusty, a little bit mushroomy thing, but it's still very clean, very bright. It is weighty, but still very bright acidity. Are you giving me something I haven't had?
This is, so I would normally not say this, because now in my mind I'm like,
wait a minute.
no. Now in my mind I'm like, wait, is this even, I guess this would be on the advanced. Now I'm going to give away too much.
No, it's okay.
What I will say is you've had it before.
Okay. Yeah.
I will say that.
Yeah.
And normally I wouldn't give that much away.
No, it's okay.
This is the wine in our portfolio. So I hate to put you on the spot.
No, it's okay. So
And feel free to like tell us what you think it's not, maybe. Like I always love a good process of elimination, like just so that people can understand like what you're thinking and what are some things that you think, okay, I'm gonna eliminate this. It's definitely not that. I'm gonna hone in on this.
So there's elegance to the wine, first of all. That's great. I can see through it. Like that is important to me as well. It's not high enough in alcohol for me to be Southern Rhone. It's not. I don't have the Parisines that I would think of from Loire, so I'm not there. And then on Pinot Noir, I'm getting a little bit more darker fruit than what I think of like from a lot of Pinot Noir. So it's starting to push me, like if I'm in France and I'm in Burgundy.
So you're thinking France for sure.
I think I'm in France.
You've already eliminated Italy and Spain and Austria from the other areas.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think also the color and the tannins. There's just like funkiness on it too.
By funky, what do you mean?
It's like just that mushroomy thing.
All right, you got to go with something.
All right, I'm gonna go with Syrah d'Auguste.
Okay. So we're in the Rhone here. Do you have any other call you want to make on it?
If it's Nebbiolo, I'm gonna be pissed.
No, it's definitely not Nebbiolo. You're in the Rhone, so you're there.
Vacqueyras, though.
Yeah. It's so
you got
funny
me
because
on
we were just talking about it, and I was like, damn, I hope he knows that wine. I pulled it. I love this wine. I mean, I think everything you're saying about it is correct, right? It's tricky because like, you're almost for a moment going to Burgundy,
right?
Because there's so much refinement in it. There is that mushroomy, gamey quality that you're saying. You're saying the dried herbs and dried sage, which is, I think, very typical of this. So nothing you said was wrong.
No,
I think you just kind of took it to another area.
I just didn't. I think I didn't. You know what? I think this is what the other side of it is too. Is that I think, in what it always does, it always kicks higher than I think quality wise.
Yeah.
I'm like, nah, it's got to be Northern Rhone. It's so elegant.
Yeah, I see the Syrah d'Auguste is like very similar too in how it drinks.
The tannin structure, all of that. So that's awesome.
Yeah, listen. It's never easy.
I love that.
It's never easy blind tasting wines like on camera and doing all this stuff. So I super appreciate you. Like I feel like every time we've tasted at Laurent's house, like you've always like it's like stuck your nose in the glass. And you know immediately what the wine is. Like so, it's so funny. But I appreciate you doing that because I think it's helpful for people to kind of see other people go through the wines and stuff. And this is just an amazing wine.
I think it was definitely.
It's so funny. We were both thinking about Vacqueyras today.
I know, and then I was like, nah, it can't be that. It's got to be Syrah. I just really thought it was the Syrah because of the weight, but I didn't. You know, the other thing is about the Edmond, the Plan de Dieu. That's got like all that Mourvèdre in there.
Oh yeah, it's richer.
It's
almost
richer.
It's a
richer
beast
than
for
this
Côte
wine.
d'Aron. Yeah. I love that wine too. Mark, we got to wrap up because we have some other things we got to do.
Cool.
I just want to say thank you for your time. Thank you for everything that you're doing with the company or that you've done with it. Like, it's honestly been, it's cool that I can like sit here with you and genuinely just have a conversation with you. And like, I know like you and Laurent are technically my boss, but I feel like I can just shoot the shit with you like a normal person. And like, and you guys are very, welcoming in everything that we do and kind of the ideas that we bring to the table, and I just want to say thanks for that because it's a great place to work, man. Like I love what we do, and I think that I couldn't have fallen into a better company. So I hope that we can do this podcast again in like 2 or 3 years. You know, I always come with a bunch of crazy ideas of stuff that we want to do, and like I definitely want to implement a lot of that too, and kind of just our everyday approach and everything we do, like from a hospitality standpoint, being in the sales side and just really connecting with people on a bigger and better level. I think doing this today was kind of like a part of, a part of that reasoning on why I wanted to do that as well, is just to get the story out and kind of continue to do what we do. So I just wanted to say thank you for that.
No, it's my pleasure.
Yeah.
And it's also my pleasure just to share the time and also to really have the time to sit and talk about like all the things that we do. Cause
For
like,
sure.
I said, we're always go, go, go.
Exactly.
But we have to. So.
Yeah. And this is honestly one of the biggest reasons why I do this with everybody is that like I'm like the biggest like maybe introverted extrovert. Where like I hate like the small talk and like the little chit chat in here.
Just
and
go. Just keep going.
And like, no, I just like, I enjoy this. Like, I'd rather do this and like have like a 45-minute conversation with somebody, kind of dig in a little bit of how they started and what things are important to them and what matters versus the, like every day, like, hey, how was the weather in Texas last weekend? Or, it's just like, I really enjoy doing this. So thanks, man. I really appreciate your time.
My pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Where's the white? We don't have a white?